We're transitioning into the fire chat now. It's a high-level conversation that will be diving into the policy and framework of what is happening in Nigeria and actually shaping the growth of Africa. So this is something that you probably want to pay attention to. And as we all know, our Honorable Minister don't play. So we'll be moderating this particular panel will be, of course, our convener. She'll be coming back on stage to join our fire chat. The speaker today on the fire chat is none other than Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, MFR, the Honorable Minister of Trade, Industry and Trade and Investments of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Give it up for her, guys. We're super proud of her. Super proud. She's a renowned policy entrepreneur and a reform leader, having served as a special advisor to the president on ease of business, doing business in Nigeria, where she was very successful. She really did some amazing things. Thank you so much. Did amazing things, and of course, she headed the trade negotiations as well. We recognize her contribution, her outstanding contribution to the country, and we're so excited to have you here for the fire chat. And let me call on our own Dr. Juliet to join us on stage. Thanks.
Mine is on. Okay. Good evening again, Dr. Jumoke. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'd like to start off with just really acknowledging the work that you've been doing, how proud we are of the work that you've been doing. We worked together in your past life, and I recall back then we were launching Google Station, and we were looking at creating an enabling environment across the various states. And you were, at the core of that, helping to facilitate those conversations. So we're very proud of the work that you're doing. So this is an opportunity to hear more about your plans. And I'd like to start with your 3 priority areas. You mentioned that, in your strategy, you're focusing on economic diversification, trade revenue growth, and investment mobilization.
It's a pleasure to be here and got here on time. The flight was about an hour delayed from Abuja, and the traffic was a bit intense, but I was really happy after yesterday to be here. So thank you for the invitation and for all the work that you are doing. It was really gratifying to hear the emphasis on the digital economy. You continue to hold down that space with a lot of energy. And so thank you for the work that you do, and to your team as well. So ladies and gentlemen, I see several stakeholders and friends in the house that collectively are shaping the landscape for Nigeria and Africa in the digital and creative space, making huge waves across the world, really, and very proud of this particular ecosystem. Now, so the 3 areas, I think that it goes without saying that focusing on the investment pillar, investment mobilization, speaks to investment retention. Most of you know that I've worked on business climate reforms for nearly a decade with PEBEC and ease of doing business. So investment retention has always taken a focus. I see several members of the diplomatic corps that I've related with their missions in the past and still continue to. The business champions, the platinum business champions, export business champions, focusing on various priority sectors. So investment retention speaks to the regulatory, legislative interventions that we continue to work on, trade facilitation, movements of people, movements of goods, all that granular work that it takes to move an economy in the right direction. Investment attraction speaks to really a lot of the work that Mr. President has been leading since May 2023, over $50 billion in investment announcements just from his presidential trips, about 87 MOUs, making sure that those announcements are closed, so tracking those and trying to support the companies that have made those announcements, and all other investors looking to Nigeria. So we have been doing a lot of traveling. It's quite tiring, and also welcoming investors on the economy. I have a flight tonight, so I'm on a bit of pressure time-wise because we don't know what the traffic would be like. But I'm actually going to the UK to speak with investors as well at a conference and at gatherings next week. We've made new friends. We've had our old friends. So I've been across several countries, and a number of countries have also been coming here. India, UAE, China, the US, the UK. It was Swiss parliamentarians were here some time ago. So really a broad spectrum, and the interest in Nigerian economy spans from digital trade, the creatives, why we're here today, to mining and solid minerals, to manufacturing, of course, to agribusiness. So all the areas that, to clean energy, to construction, to infrastructure. The panels were discussing the size of our economy and the interest of the world on this economy. So in terms of investment, mobilization, working on our capital markets, working on our legislative frameworks, that's the work that we've been doing. With trade policy, we've been optimizing our agreements, reviewing some of those agreements, and making sure that they're fully operationalized, looking to WTO, what it means, the road to Cameroon next year, what it means for Nigeria and Africa in terms of negotiations, and in particular, spend a lot of time operationalizing the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, Nigeria's positioning around that. We're export-led economy, that's our focus, just making sure that our exports are growing across the continent and across the world. And AFCFTA is a veritable tool with 1.2 billion people and with a market of $3.4 trillion. It's, you know, an opportunity for us and for other economies, other businesses doing, other countries doing business with Nigeria to also see this as a launching pad to the rest of the continent. So in terms of trade policy, there are other enablers. IP policy speaks to the stakeholders here, our trademarks policies and our registries, reforming those and building on that. Our capital markets, wow, we're galvanizing. There's really so much going on in that area as well. So that would be the trade policy. A lot of interest in other countries. The US team spoke about that. The UK team spoke about that. I've met with just those two missions in the last few days as well, and the work that we continue to do together, very topical and pertinent for our businesses and our ecosystem. Diversifying the economy, I've spoken to some of the areas where we're accelerating. The thing about this particular ministry is that we're enablers, so we work with communications and digital economy, we work with the creative economy and tourism, we work with agriculture, health. We support all the other ministries to deliver on their mandates, and we support businesses directly. We work on policy. I know that some of the stakeholders continue to speak to some of the regulatory challenges which we're intervening because of the PEBIC background. It's also very easy to approach me and say where there are challenges, and I'm engaging with agencies under my ministry to make sure that we align and that we're business friendly, and also speaking to other stakeholders. So I think those are the three big buckets. There are special interventions that we're driving. I would say that you haven't, but I know you will ask about digital trade, but maybe I should wait for your question. Let me wait for your question.
And I'll ask it now.
Yes.
So you've talked about various collaborations, including collaborating with the Ministry for Communications and Digital Economy. And in one of your articles, you talked a lot about the fact that the digital economy is so crucial, which was really good to hear because I agree 100%. I think if we're going to accelerate growth in the region, the digital economy really offers a pathway to that accelerated growth. And in this room, you have the ecosystem, the key players in the digital economy, from startups to innovators to investors, business leaders, and other stakeholders. What would you like to say to the ecosystem, and how can the ecosystem support the work that you're doing?
Okay, so I think that the first thing I'd like to say to the ecosystem is that we're a listening government. We're ready to listen to whatever it is you need to thrive. You're Mr. President's priority and you're my priority, and we're committed to seeing this ecosystem thrive. And the reason is simple. This is where young Nigerians in particular are competitive. Nigerians are tech natives. We're doing phenomenally well in the creative space as well. The talent pool is phenomenal, which is why so many countries find Nigeria an important place to come and have important missions set up to try and attract and facilitate trade and investment. We're also committed to making sure that we invest in digital public infrastructure. So we need support from the ecosystem as well. So I was speaking with some members of the ecosystem just recently. We have a big problem with our trademark registry and just how to use technology and partner with us to solve some of those challenges and make it more transparent and efficient to have those trademarks and patents registered seamlessly. Also, it's a win-win for the ecosystem as well. So areas like that, there's a lot of gov tech to be done. We're also committed to attracting you to working on digital public infrastructure projects like the National Single Window, several, it's under the leadership of FIRS right now. It speaks to customs and trade facilitation. The Minister of Interior also has the e-passports, e-visas projects that he's working on. These are all technology-driven, but specifically from our ministry, we're looking at a lot of public digital infrastructure in terms of market intelligence tools, trade intelligence units, investment, virtual deal books, and how to attract investors that can basically see transparently at different levels what deals are available, what deals have been de-risked, and people who want to come into the market to do big transactions. In traveling across various regions, a lot of interest. For instance, the Middle East is really, really interested in this ecosystem in particular, and so facilitating some of all those discussions and transactions, building trust, the G2G elements, making sure that we have the MOUs and the bilateral agreements in place to support you in whichever ecosystem is going to invest in your businesses. So also diversifying the pool of capital so that we're not stranded at any point in time. Also learning to speak the language of catalyzing capital from within the continent to make sure that the ecosystem is also well supported. I think I was saying to a group of this same ecosystem that I think that the system knows a lot about pitching to certain jurisdictions like the US, but how to get patient capital and the breadth of capital across the continent to come in. For instance, at Addis, about a month ago, I was listening to the Africa Club, which is led by Afrexim Bank, but AFC, AFDB, African Re, talking about the amount of capital that they're trying to catalyze across the continent for the continent. And I think that a big portion of that is only enlightened self-interest with the trajectory of the continent and the young population to focus on that capital coming to this particular ecosystem, but they tend to think about agriculture, manufacturing, which is all good, but the global GDP and the Nigerian GDP, just to stay here, is already over 50% services. And when you talk about services, when you look at our GDP and how it's growing, and services is over 50%, but this particular demographic is already 10% in terms of the fastest growing bits for the GDP. So this is where we need to support and make sure that you deliver those productive jobs. We're also focusing on business outsourcing because Nigerian youth have the right energy. I like the fact that the Swiss envoy Frank talked about that. Definitely the right energy, entrepreneurial spirit. We can get a lot of outsourcing. That economy, that chunk is huge to get that in here. We're in a good time zone, English-speaking population. So that's another way. We're trying to solve societal problems, and we believe you listed yourself, whether it's agri-tech, edu-tech, health tech, whatever it is, solving problems in rural areas, using drones, technology for agriculture, for dropping medicines in remote places, for dropping fertilizer, whatever it is. We believe that this is the ecosystem. When it's entertainment, whether it's whatever it is, we believe that this is the ecosystem that can really consolidate Nigeria's inflection point. And this is the time to do it.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better. Yes, I think that's very, very on point. The fact that when you look at everything that exists and the opportunities, technology is really a gateway. And you mentioned the outsourcing industry. Currently, it's worth over $300 billion globally at the moment. And we have a lot of positive ticks that can enable us to play in that space, the language, the time zone, the talent, and so on. But that's an area we haven't fully developed. So it'll be great to see a lot more development in that space. I'm going to open it up to take one or two questions. I know you have to leave shortly, so we'll try to make it quick. And while people are getting ready, just one more question. When you leave office, what are some things that you would absolutely like to see in place?
I think that it's a short term, so not to be presumptuous, 2027 is literally just around the corner. So if you say in an 18-month or medium-term horizon, what would I like to see in place? I would like to see for sure impact. And when I say impact, not just in a vague impact, I'm very big on empiricals. So we set targets, and I think that's what helped me coming from the background of PEBEC for about 9 years. Really what gets measured gets done. So for instance, we have the National Export Talent Program, NATEP, and we've set ourselves a target of 1 million jobs in 5 years. So when you prorate that, what do we want to see? As the ministry, I know really the place of government is enabling, so making sure that that whole ecosystem, we've, for instance, put the foundations, we've had the market access, we've built the trust to make sure that that system can start thriving in Nigeria, and Nigeria to be known as an area that we can compete in. There are also other areas like in this digital trade space, you know that Nigeria is now a digital trade champion, and what can we attract for Africa, not just for Nigeria, for Africa. We ourselves would like to see a lot more of this ecosystem registered and domiciled in Nigeria, and so that that money counts for Nigeria's GDP. And the job creation matrix, we have some targets as well in that. And for entertainment, we also want to make sure that we're not selling our talent. The only consolation is that for every Nigerian, maybe artist or company that's sold and goes to another jurisdiction, the pipeline of talent is just so immense. But we have to start putting our regulatory and legislative structures in place to attract and retain not only our own talent, but also attract others to invest right here. With manufacturing, I'd like to see a lot more manufacturing for export and to make sure that our goods are coming in. We actually have a digital free zone that we're working on. So there's some of the concrete things. I'd like measurable success, not just she speaks well, she's well educated, she dresses well. Someone was like, I look like I'm on a runway all the time. I want to see actual, concrete, empirical, verifiable difference that we can all say, indeed, she made a difference.
Fantastic. Absolutely. And we're definitely rooting for you, and you have the support of the ecosystem.
Thank you.
We'll invite any questions from the audience.
I've talked them to the ground. I was talking so fast because I wanted to say quite a bit.
There's one question. Yes, please.
Okay, let me get over to him. Please, your name and your question. Thank you.
Good evening, Honorable Minister. Good evening, Dr. Juliet. My name is Ugonna, co-founder and CEO at Figure. Figure is a B2B wholesale marketplace that enables businesses source goods in bulk directly from suppliers and manufacturers. So think of it like Alibaba, but for the African market. So my question is around the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. I know this agreement has been signed by about 54 or 55 African states, but we are not yet seeing the implementation. It's not fully operational yet. So I just want to understand, what are the challenges, what is holding back the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, and what are you doing to facilitate that? Because I think that would be really instrumental for a country like Nigeria and the African economy as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Gunnar. That's a great question, actually. So the AFCFTA has been live in terms of trading. It started with a guided trade initiative for like 5 years now. It piloted with about 8 countries and then spread. But now really, most of the countries have started trying to move goods and services across the continent, and the negotiations have been going really well. For this particular ecosystem, Africa is really the only region that has its digital trade protocol and the annexes already assented to at a heads of state level. It was all signed off, and it's ready for trade. So that's one good thing to note. The trading has started. In January, on January 16th, we hosted the Secretary General of the AFCFTA in Abuja, and we actually had some members of this ecosystem come to speak on how they're trading across the continent already. So companies that are in 3, 4, 5, 6 African markets. So there's a lot of information dissemination that's still needed and a lot of background housekeeping work. Mr. President recently signed off on our gazetted, the ECOWAS tariffs. That was pending for Nigeria. That's now been done. So we'll be submitting that. And just enabling this ecosystem with information and structures, infrastructure for traders in goods. And so for you who would move goods to enable the e-commerce, we would also have to make sure that in terms of trade facilitation, we're working on that. The Customs Comptroller General is hosting all the heads of customs of Africa, across Africa, in Abuja this quarter, because it's not for want of. FCFTA is already ready in terms of legal structures and agreements. It's the operationalization of it, and it's mainly about people, it's about trust, it's about communication. And so the agreement mandates a 5-year checkpoint, and so we started our own checkpoint. We announced that in January, and we have support from technical support from UNDP. We're engaging with Afrexim Bank. They've been really supportive in our technical support to work through what that looks like, what that audit looks like, and what Nigeria needs to do. Now, one of the things I also did was to inaugurate a central coordinating committee for AFCFTA in Nigeria, because though we do have an AFCFTA National Action Coordinator Office, it needed a lot more in terms of galvanizing and communication. So I'm glad you asked that question, because I'd like you to watch that space. A lot is already happening. People are already using the AFCFTA, trading goods, trading services, but there's certainly a lot more in terms of engagement and hand-holding and facilitating for businesses. And I'm pretty willing and excited to help you all to tap into that space as you export your services.
Fantastic. A round of applause, I think. I doubt there's any question you never come prepared for. I have another question here. Your name, what you do. You look familiar.
Good evening, Honorable Minister. My name is Deyemi Okonlawo. I am a Nollywood actor, film producer, and former distribution executive. I'm not sure if you're aware, but the streamers over the last few years have contributed immensely to Nollywood films being exported across the world. However, recently, there's been changes in their business models, and that's kind of affected how our movies are going to be distributed. I've been really curious to find out what the Ministry of Trade, what your ministry would be doing to help the industry further take the films. Again, sorry about that, but I was going to say that Nollywood has probably been one of the biggest influences in exporting our music, our fashion, our food, and our places across the world. Okay? And so I think it's really important to be in, for the industry, for the ministry to be involved in our industry. And so we're asking, are there conversations that have been ongoing? We think that countries like Japan and other countries that have technology that can help us distribute our films both locally and internationally we should be having these kinds of conversations. And I'm hoping that it's something that we can count on the ministry to help us with. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Demi. Another great question and comment, and just in time. We actually just recently, I'll start from the back, in talks with the government of Japan, some of the work that they're doing in facilitating Nigeria. So I would be willing to have that conversation if there's specific things that you'd like to discuss with that particular country. Be happy to do that. But also just to say that we're extremely willing to support the ecosystem to come up with innovative ways of streaming that actually keep the income local and home. That's exactly what we want to do. So think of it as a blessing in disguise. And let's work together to come up with, here we have the technology innovators in the room, and we have the creatives in the room. Out of this discussion, we can actually come up with ways of streaming that keep the income right here as we export the content in Nigeria and on the continent. So these are exactly the kinds of solutions that I want to see come out of this space today.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. We have one final question. You can give a round of applause. I've been told the Honorable Minister has a very important flight to catch. We'll take this last question and move on from there.
Honorable Minister, Rhoda Sodiri with Arise News. I just wanted to get your outlook for the Nigerian economy for this fiscal year 2025, whether you're optimistic. JP Morgan, for instance, put out a note just yesterday, pretty optimistic about the changes that have been taking place with respect to monetary and the fiscal side. So as far as trade is concerned, like AGOA, we need to see that renewed with the United States. How optimistic are you for the Nigerian economy moving forward for fiscal year 2025?
Good to see you, Rotis. We started this conversation in January, and you know that I'm fully optimistic about the Nigerian economy this year. On a serious note, the pain has been taken like surgery. We're gone through the worst, and it's an inflection point. So I see 2025 as an extremely important year for the country, and I think that everybody should, and most people are paying attention. This is the beginning of Q2. It's hard to believe one quarter is gone already, and we have 3 quarters left in the year. And so we all started with our outlooks. We started by looking, and the optimism hasn't waned. 3 months later, if JP Morgan is still commenting, what it is that Frank talked about stability, and that's what we're beginning to see. Foreign exchange, subsidy removed, things are actually beginning to settle down, not making the news like it was. The work that's needed in areas of power, for instance, infrastructure, the work is ongoing. Businesses are able to plan, are able to think through what they can get done in 2025 and beyond. So I think it's a great time to focus on Nigeria. I'm particularly inundated with the amount of investors who want to come into Nigeria, who are in Nigeria and want to meet with me, want to know about what we're doing, want to be sure. Because when fiscal and monetary are solved, everybody turns to trade, everybody turns to investment, and everybody wants to know what are the incentives, what is the government, that there won't be any policy flip-flops, that things will be certain. And this is exactly what private sector needs, the assurance, which is why I take the time to come to places like this to assure you that you are Mr. President's priority. He's very market-driven. He's interested. I mean, you see that he's even solved unintended consequences when we've had some regulatory faux pas that have, sort of blundered unintentionally for the private sector. Just last week, we were engaging with big businesses that had issues with the Financial Reporting Council, and we're reviewing that because we are a listening government. So, Rotus, I know we've had these conversations a number of times. You're a close analyst, one of the leading analysts on Nigeria's economy, and you should be answering that question and telling us that indeed this is the year, we shouldn't miss the boat, we shouldn't miss the time, we should stay the course, and we should believe that the government is committed to making sure that you can start and grow your businesses and thrive. And please, when I say we're a listening government, I actually mean it. We're big on dialogue, we're big on engagement. The diplomatic corps will bear me witness. I've met with several of them. Private sector will also bear me witness. Even virtual meetings, really happy to take, especially when there are substantive issues on the table in terms of agendas to be discussed. And I try my best to solve them and point people in the right direction. So I think that the dialogue, the communication is open. Once fiscals and monetary are sorted, the next thing is productivity, competitiveness, exports, earning that much needed foreign exchange, making sure that the regulations, the legislations are well aligned for various sectors. And that's really the hard work that we continue to do.
Amazing. Dr. Jumoke, it's been great having this conversation with you. Your passion and your commitment are very, very evident, and we look forward to continuing to collaborate with your office.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. It's been a pleasure to be here.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure we can do much, much better than that. Thank you so much to the Honorable Minister for Industry, Trade and Investment, Dr. Jumoke Oduwole. We wish we could take more time and have more time, but she really needs to go right now.